Welcome back to MVM. We have a review today of a game called Space Base from AEG. We had the chance to play this more than a month ago, and it's just now hitting stores. It's a really, really fun game.
It's a very solid Tableau engine building game for 2 to 5 players. Plays in about 45 minutes to get through the entire game. Let's talk about the components. Each player in front of them is going to have a command board. This command board is going to house all of your different ships. So the idea in the game is that you are acquiring a shipyard, or ships into your shipyard and trying to gain victory points. To do so, you're going to be manipulating your board back and forth. Each of your places on your board is going to be numbered 1 through 12. So different ships will get slotted into different locations. There's a whole variety of ships, and they come in 3 different levels. The levels are broken apart by the cost and the abilities that those ships provide for the players.
Yeah, the board is going to have everyone's same 12 ships at the beginning of the game. These are going to fire off when on your turn you roll dice. The cool thing about the game is when on your turn you roll dice, everyone else is able to be engaged as well. So you're able to look at the dice and sort of activate some of the ships that you have on your board if it's your turn, or some of the ships that you've deployed when it's not your turn.
Also on your command board, you're going to have a track on the bottom. This is 3 different separate rows. Your first row is the credits that you have to spend round after round. Typically, these credits will reset when you buy or purchase new ships onto your command board. The next one down is your income. You can lock your credits into a specific location by moving your income up, meaning that when you buy things, it only hits that threshold and doesn't go back down to 0. And on the very bottom is your victory point tracker. This is a race to get to 40 victory points before anyone else at the game. Also, you're going to see a number of colonies up here. These are additional locations that you can place onto your board, but they lock ships from going to those locations for the rest of the game.
Yeah, those are going to give you one-time big point boosts, but like Jeremy said, it shuts down that space on your board while you're rolling, but any cards you have deployed in that slot will still fire off when other people roll.
2 other main components. Of course, you have dice. You're going to be rolling dice every round, 2 dice, and allocating them to your command board. And then you have charges. The charges are going to interact with specific ships on your player board and will allow you to power special abilities throughout the course of the game.
Yeah, there's a wide range of ships here. There's some, the ones on the main player board at the beginning are as simple as just getting 1 credit, maybe 3 credits, maybe some victory points moving up. But then as you play the game, there's an incredible amount of cards. Like Jeremy said, there's some that you put these counters on, or these charges, and they can fire off some really, really interesting effects, all the way up and including a card that allows you to win the game.
That's right. So let's talk about the actual ship cards, because it's important to understand what they look like to better understand how the game plays. When you look at a typical ship card, in the upper right-hand corner, you're going to notice a number. These numbers are 1 through 12, telling you which of the 1 through 12 spots on your command board where this ship has to be allocated to. Right below that, you have a benefit. These blue benefits are possible abilities or actions you can take on your turn. Now on the bottom, you're going to see a red ability. There's points in the game where you're going to actually redeploy these ships to the top of your command board and kind of tuck them into that same spot. So originally this will go on the 5 spot, but then it will be turned over and tucked underneath the board, only revealing the 1 red spot here. And the idea behind that is the red spots are actually going to activate on other players' turns. So the great thing about this game is not only are you taking turns and activating things, but you're also paying attention on every other player's turn because you could possibly gain benefits.
Yeah, and in some cases, it's even more exciting on someone else's turn if you've deployed a lot of ships in one number and you're really looking for that to happen. The good news is you're never waiting really for your turn to come back around.
So to start the game, you're going to put all 12 of the colonies up in the player area. You're going to put decks 1, 2, and 3. Those are the levels of the ship, and you're going to reveal 6 in each of those rows. Everyone's going to fill their board with their 12 main starting ships. Then each player is going to randomly draw 1 level 1 card from the deck. They're going to buy that with an X amount of money that everyone's given at the start of the game, and they're going to slot that into the new position. For instance, I was given this card that costs $3, meaning it goes into the 2 slot, and then that bumps my other 2 card underneath my board, just as we had already previously discussed. And you're going to go around the table, and everyone's going to be able to have 1 ship that they start with at the beginning of the game.
So these are going to go in different places, obviously, if everyone gets different ships. Mine went into the 10 slot. What you do next is you look to see who slotted in their free first ship into the highest sector. That person's the start player. everyone else is going to get some bonuses like extra money or maybe some even additional income, and then the game starts with player one.
Yeah, so when on your turn, you're simply going to pick up both of the dice and you're going to roll them. Now, here's where the cool portion comes in. That player who rolled then gets to allocate these dice. I rolled a 3 and a 1, so I have an option here. I can choose to use both the 3 and the 1 dice separately of one another, activating my 3 and my 1 slot, giving me $1 and $1. Or I can combine those 2 dice together for 4 and activate this. Now in this case, it's going to give me more benefit and more money from activating the 3 and the 1. But as you progress and you start to add ships into numerous locations, you're getting better and more beneficial abilities through the course of the game.
Right, and the same thing happens here for everyone else at the table. At the beginning of the game, not as much as later in the game, but everyone's going to look at these same dice and look above their board to the ships that they've deployed. If I had a ship in the 1 slot or the 4 or the 1 and the 3, I could activate those deployed ships. The cool thing is later in the game, if I've bought a bunch of ships that go into my 4 spot, and I might have 4 ships deployed up above that, they don't replace each other, they stack. Yeah. So if someone rolls a 4, I'm able to fire off all of those. And if someone happened to roll double 4s, I fire them off twice.
Yeah, so it's important to note that each of your 12 ship slots, the ones that are actually on your command board, can only have 1 ship in each of those locations. However, all the ones that have been flipped and exposed the red portion of the card, you can stack those, as you said. So the other thing that you can do on your turn, now there's multiple different cards that have locations on them that show charges. Whenever you roll these dice, you're then allowed to allocate charge tokens to these if they are slotted on your board. Now, there's some of the cards that require all the slots to be filled up. There's some of them that just have 1, 2, or 3 slots, and you can use them as you so wish. A lot of them have arrows on them too, meaning that if you use that charge, whatever you roll can then be 2 higher, 1 to the left, 1 to the right. So there's a lot of ways to kind of change the way by which you're activating those dice.
Yeah, it's really cool because a game like this, a lot of people think, well, you're rolling dice and you're just firing these off. Like Machi Koro, you kind of roll and you get what you get. In this game, they change that a lot with the 2 dice. The decisions you're making, first of all, really change that up. But like Jeremy said, you're able to put charges on some of these. And if you build the right sort of ships in your command console, you're potentially able to change an 8 to a 9 or a 10 or 11. And those higher numbers have really good benefits.
Absolutely. So just to kind of walk you through what I've done on this turn, I rolled a 3 and a 1. I'm going to add 2 to my money because I'm activating my 3 and my 1 ship. Everyone else around the table is also going to activate their red cards if they happen to have those numbers in any combination. Then that player has the option of buying. The player who rolled the dice can look at all these cards and decide what they want to buy. Now, the stacks of cards get progressively more expensive. So level 1s range from $1 up to $5, and then your level 3s are going to go up to $14. So the player can choose to buy any one of these cards, and 1 card only.
Yes.
They then buy that card going all the way back down to 0. So no matter how much money you have, you expend all of the money that you have available, making sure that, of course, you can pay for this in the first place. Then you're going to look at the slot. You're simply going to place it into that new slot and then put this underneath. Now, you can choose also not to buy a card and to save that money for a future card in a future round.
Yeah, that's the only way you're going to actually build up a lot of money. And Jeremy mentioned these colony cards. A lot of these cost quite a bit. Even the first one costs 9. So the last one costs 42, which is actually more money than what's on your board or on the console. So you're going to have to save up money turn after turn in order to get one of those, or even to get some of these level 3 cards.
Once you're done with your turn, you're simply going to take the dice and pass them to the next player. And you're going to keep going around the table over and over, refilling any of the cards that have been purchased until one player gets to 40 victory points. So let's talk about our review.
Yeah, absolutely.
So this game is really cool. I love the aspect that you're building this tableau of ships in front of you. Number one, the game looks gorgeous. Like it's really bright, it's very colorful, but it's also really fun to play. And the main reason for that for me is because this game makes you constantly engaged. Like most of these games, you roll dice, you do whatever as someone's talking on their cell phone, someone's making pizza. But this game, I mean, literally, you're paying attention to what everyone does. And as the game starts to gradually build, you have all of these different abilities that you can take or that you can use on other players' turns. And it's really fun to build out that engine because you're not always concentrating on one specific slot. You want to concentrate on all those slots so that every time a die is rolled, you have better chances of procking those specific abilities from happening.
Yeah, and there's different strategies you can take. You can take Jeremy's strategy and kind of spread things out, and if you deploy a lot of ships above your board across the top, you're always going to be getting a benefit. But that is the other thing that's great about this game compared to some others like it, is that you're almost always getting something on your turn. Certainly on your turn, guaranteed, you will always have something happen. And you have choices, like I said earlier. You're not always necessarily just taking what you get. You can say, oh, I've got a 4 and a 5. Oh, but my 9 is really hot. I'll just use both dice to do the 9.
Right.
It makes the game a lot more decision-y, if you will, on your turn, for sure.
Yeah. The other great thing, too, is that you look at these stack of cards, there's 48, 48, and 36 cards in each of these stacks. I mean, there's a ton of variety in the game. There's a lot of ways to manipulate the dice, re-roll the dice, twist the dice around.
Set the dice to whatever number
you number, yeah. So you're never stuck. If you draft or you purchase the right set of cards and you build out your command console well, you're always going to have some options to be able to change those dice values.
Yeah, and it's cool because you can do that, or you can say, embrace the luck, and just go without any of that manipulation and try to get cards that give you massive amounts of points. You know, I've seen players really deploy a lot of 11s and 12s, which very rarely fire off compared to all the rest of the numbers, but when they do, and whenever someone else rolls it, you're firing off on a bunch of cards above there, getting a ton of points, a ton of money, all sorts of things happening for you.
The other great thing is that it's very, very easy to introduce to new players. We've taken this to a local convention. I know you've played this game a lot more than I have, but it's super simple to play. And being that it's so engaging for players to participate every single round, it's natural that people are going to gravitate and like the game. And we haven't found a single person that said, I don't really like this game. It's a really solid game.
Yeah, it really is. And like Jeremy just said, with new players, when you're using a gateway game in that little sort of classification of gateway games, this has the perfect remedy for that person at the table who's just sitting there going, I'm kind of bored with, I'm not really into board games. I get bored really easily. You cannot get bored with this. You're always looking at the dice. And like I said, sometimes you might have cards above your board that are more exciting than the cards you have on your board. So everyone else, when it's their turn, you're even more engaged.
Yeah. The only problem I would say the game has is that there is a slight learning curve on all the different types of cards. That's both the benefit and also the crux of the game. So make sure that when you sit down to teach people the game, you introduce what all these arrows and all these charges do.
Absolutely.
Because there's a ton of variety, which is great for people like us who like variables in our games, but also can be a little bit of a learning curve for new players.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I generally teach the first row of cards because that's the only one anyone's going to get the first time. And then as new cards come out, it's very easy to just say, here's what this one does.
Yeah. Fantastic game from AEG. Space Base. It's from John Clare. If you guys aren't familiar, this is the guy that did Mystic Vale, Custom Heroes, Edge of Darkness. Yeah. So great designer, great pedigree. 2 to 5 players, plays in about 45 minutes. If you guys have any questions about the game, make comments below. Subscribe to us, follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook, everything else that we do, and we will catch you guys next time.
Bye-bye.